I'm Debbie Bell-Hosking at EBAday 2024 in Lisbon, and I'm joined by Lilia Christofi of Microsoft. We're talking about the bank of the future. Lilia, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Great to have you here. Lots of buzz behind us.
Indeed, extremely busy.
Which is always good, always good. So we're talking about the bank of the future. What is the role of AI, that buzzword that everyone's talking about? What's the role of AI in shaping the bank of the future?
I think we have to think about AI in two different components. One is AI and the algorithmic side, which we've had for many, many years. And then there's generative AI, which is the new introduction of AI, which happened based on large language models about a year ago. And the generative AI makes AI accessible. It makes our ability of processing data a lot more accessible. And so when you look at the different divisions within banking now, they're all trying to adopt it in order to surface the knowledge and the information in order to support decision-making processes. And so when you start looking at the different service lines that you could potentially impact, we're talking investment banking, in digesting industry market information, which some banks and certain divisions can have per country 230 different data feeds to digest. It's a very hard job to do and get on top of as you're making those decisions. And anyway, you've got real-time data like commodity pricing that changes all the time. So a global markets team also is very interested in how they would use it and leverage that to compose research for the organization, for the bank, but also research that they can then sell on to other organizations and their merchants and their corporates that they work with. If you look at trade financing, you can think of the supply chain being ever so complex. So being able to digest the risks associated with that supply chain is another really great use case. And my favorite use cases are coming out of risk and compliance, because these are areas where I think a lot of modernization investment needs to go into in order to actually keep up with the ethics behind delivering capabilities like this for customers, and feeling a level of assurance that we are within the regulation, within the compliance and the attestations, and within the legal frameworks that we have got outlined.
Absolutely. I mean, there's the sea of data to access, and then there's also this layers to actually implementing AI.
That's right.
So what would you say, we're just touching now, you sort of mentioned ethics, but what would you say are the risks or the potential risks of implementing AI in the financial services?
Yeah, I think it's a really valid and very important question. And the reason why is because if you think about a bank, they have a particular market segment that they may work with. And they understand that market segment very well because they've been addressing it for many years and collecting a lot of historical data on it. So if they start building their models on that data, then they are catering more for those types of clients and not necessarily new markets, new clients, new segments. So when the business strategy starts changing, the question is, will that technology then be able to facilitate the adoption and the changes required to give the right kind of decisions around loan constructs, trade financing, and all these kinds of things in this new market segment? In addition to that, if you think about everything we have talked about in terms of responsible AI frameworks, which we as a Microsoft invest quite heavily in, around the transparency of how you build, the security of building it, and so on. I think these are very important concepts, and how it ties in with security. Let's say, hypothetically, you roll out a digital avatar that is supporting you with your onboarding process into a bank, or supporting you with your loan application, right? What if that could be hijacked? We have built authentication controls and checks and biometric measures in as part of logging into normal applications, but now you're not logging into a normal application, you're speaking to an avatar. So that consistent monitoring, that checking and so on needs to be inbuilt into that AI alongside the process in order to facilitate the same level of rigor that's needed from a security point of view.
And I suppose also having that security over the sea of data that the generative AI is learning from, as well as that access. So
absolutely, yes.
So many layers.
Absolutely, data privacy is going to have a big factor in how we deliver artificial intelligence, because we're training data that sometimes is very sensitive, and without that authentication or authorization of sharing that data to a specific market segment or pool becomes quite a challenging area.
Absolutely, and there are challenges here. Now, when we look at different institutions who are adopting AI, what are the qualities they want to be for, or even better yet, leading in
Yes.
when implementing AI?
I think institutions are not yet well equipped to have this capability proliferously across the bank. And areas where we've seen higher levels of maturity, they centralize the function to bring the best of the best skills that exist within the organization in a collective place and be able to facilitate almost like a SaaS model in delivering internally this kind of capability. And it starts with a cultural change, because people tend to be scared. They're scared of what it means if they make a mistake with the utilization of the new tool in the everyday process. Sometimes it's even about clarity, not knowing how that AI can augment or facilitate the change in the way they execute their day-to-day. With some very basic experimentation, you won't see the level of benefits that you're expecting from AI. And so people may not necessarily adopt because of that transitionary period. So it's important for a bank to think about how the AI will be embedded in as part of the workflow, and actually invest in the outline and the distribution of the marketing and the knowledge and the training around that to make sure that it is adopted in the right ways.
And I suppose some are diving in and others are waiting and watching
Yes.
to see how it's been adopted.
Yeah, well, I often get asked, how are you doing this in another bank? Can you show us for this particular process, what are you doing? How do you choose it? There's so many options, Copilot overload. How do we centralize the capability so that we don't get it just from one platform provider and then a slightly different but complementary capability from another provider and confuse the user? Let's rationalize and make it simple and easy.
Well, dare I say it, you've actually made the topic slightly easier and simpler to understand. So big congratulations to you on that, Lilia. A vast topic to discuss, and thank you so much for at least just touching the tip of the iceberg with us in the short interview that we have today. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you for having me.